This episode of the Fairway to Retail Success is brought to you by AGM vendor partner T-Commerce, the online retail solution for golf facilities. T-Commerce helps merchandisers and golf professionals expand sales beyond the physical shop and fill merchandising gaps. Give your members and customers the convenience of shopping online 24/7, all with no extra inventory risk or additional work for your staff. Visit tcommerce.shop to learn how easy it is to take your shop online. Now, back to today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fairway to Retail Success in AGM podcast. I'm your host, Justine Cook, the AGM's Director of Membership and Education. Today, I'm joined by Devon Thew, Director of Retail for the Kiawah Island Club in South Carolina. Devon has been a part of the Kiawah family since 2012, beginning as the buyer for the Cacique Golf Shop and now overseeing 7 retail locations across the island, including golf, fitness, beach, pool, and tennis. Her career is a great example of how curiosity, adaptability, and mentorship can shape lasting success in the golf retail industry. From building a website from scratch during the pandemic to mentoring rising merchandisers, Devon has helped Kiawah evolve into a dynamic, multifaceted retail operation that serves every corner of the member experience. Devon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Justine, thank you for having me. I listen to your podcast all the time and I love what you've created. So it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know I mentioned a little bit about your background being at Kiawah since 2012, but can you walk us through your career in golf retail? How did you get started and what led you to your current role as director of retail there?
It was truly being in the right place at the right time. A little bit about my background is I went to school for fashion and merchandising. I even studied in Paris for a month once I graduated from school. And it was there that it was put into my head about sports retail. I always knew that maybe high fashion wasn't exactly the line of merchandising and retail that I was meant to be in, but it was one of my teachers in Paris that sort of put it into my idea or the idea in my head about sports retail. I was young at the time, so I hopped around to a couple of different cities. I tried a couple of different careers out and ended up in something very different than fashion and retail. I ended up in baking when I first moved to Charleston. And it's in banking. I was working at a bank on Kiawah when the opportunity at the club was brought to my attention. So when I was at the bank, I had created relationships with a lot of our customers. And one of those customers was a manager at one of the facilities at the club. And she came in and did her daily deposits for the club. And in talking with her, I mentioned that my background was in merchandising, and she was just like, this is fantastic. We're hiring at the club for a buyer merchandiser. So give me your resume and I'll give it to the right people. And I did that. And 3 weeks later, I was working at Cacique. I've never experienced anything like that before, but it was truly unique. And having not been in the golf industry, it was eye-opening to start. But another unique experience about that is that on my first day, it was the day after the PGA Championship that was at the resort at Ocean Course in 2012 when Rory won. So he was actually on property at Cacique on my first day and doing like marketing and things with Oakley. And I didn't get to meet Rory specifically, but I did get to hold the Wanamaker Trophy. And again, not being a golfer, I didn't truly know what that meant, but it was a pretty unique first day experience. I started at Cacique as the buyer merchandiser, and my career has evolved with the club in the needs that we have there. In my time, I've been blessed to have worked with a great number of pros. Each has taught me something new about golf, golf merchandising, and golf merchandise. Like I said, as a non-golfer, I had a lot to learn. One of the main things that these pros taught me is the beauty of asking questions, not just to your peers, but calling around to local golf shops, talking to their buyers and their pros, and seeing what's working and what isn't working for them. I think that's a great way to just reach out and learn things that you might not have been thinking about. And everyone has something different to offer. Getting as advice from all the different areas is perfect. About 5 years into my role at Cacique, our partners converted some space at our beach club into a retail space and asked me to take lead on that. And it was my first opportunity sort of creating the space from scratch. So it was buying slat wall, buying fixtures, and just finding product that would work in there that I wasn't completely in touch with because I was in the golf industry. So it was learning something new there. But from that, it evolved into we opened a skeet shooting facility and creating a retail space there, and then into our fitness and our tennis. I was asked to revamp what was happening there. And also at that time, the buyer at River Course, our second golf course, was put in her notice. And so they asked me to take charge there as well. And since then, they've opened two other sort of beach resort facilities. So I currently have seven golf shops over the island, or not golf shops, seven shops over the island. And the difference between the shops and the different areas of fashion that I get to be in and explore is pretty exciting.
Wow, that's so amazing. I love your whole story start to finish there. And I think what you said was interesting that sports retailing was not obvious to you. I think that's probably true for a lot of folks. I know that is not necessarily the most obvious career path. So I think that's really interesting. And everyone ends up where they're supposed to be, I always say. So it seems like you really have achieved that at Kiawah. And you mentioned seven retail locations, which is so impressive. It sounds very exciting, but I'm sure it comes with its challenges. How do you stay connected to each of those locations and keep everything aligned with your overall brand experience at Kiawah?
Exciting and challenging is definitely a great way to explain managing all these different stores and facilities. It's exciting because every day is different, and I get to work with so many different teams throughout our facilities. The club does a great job about finding the perfect team members for each location, and I'm really blessed to get to work with so many of them. Challenging because logistically, while it's a small island, it's also a pretty big island, and it's 30 minutes from one location to the furthest location, having to time management in the week to make sure that I get to all the places that I need to be. But the best way that for me to make it all work is communication. Typically, at each of our locations, I have a manager, an employee that I work hand in hand with to let them know what I'm planning merchandise wise. They can contact me with special requests from members. I'll let them know when product is arriving, if I or our assistant manager isn't bringing it out personally. And then we also work together to collaborate on ideas and keep things fresh in the shops. As my role has evolved over the years, I unfortunately don't get to spend as much time in the shops as I would like chatting with the members and the team. Strong communication is the only way to make all of this work. One of the ways I do that is when we get new product or have a new vendor in, I like to be on hand to unbox things with the team and communicate with them, sort of selling points and best practices and other takeaways about the brand and the product so that I can give them all the tools they need for success and set to sell the product to the membership properly. And if I'm not on hand to do that, I do like to send big emails that have all kinds of those same points in there, or I work with the vendor specifically to put together an education for the teams. On the point of vendors, the other thing I like to do is I like to bring as many of our team members into the meetings as possible. So when I'm meeting with the reps and doing the pre-booking and things like that, I like to have all the team members in there because they get the firsthand knowledge from the rep that has the most knowledge about the product. And I find that one, that excites the team, but two, they're getting that firsthand knowledge to then go and share it with other team members, but also the membership as well. Lastly, back to the challenging logistics of trying to be in multiple places at once. I truly could not do what I do without the support of all of the different teams and all the different facilities. One of the things is empowering those team members and coaching them about ordering, receiving, product placement is one of the keys to my success. I see that coaching as a win-win when I'm teaching these team members to this information. It helps them grow in their careers and in their position, but it's also helps me and the shop stay up with inventory needs and demands.
Amazing. Truly a balancing act.
Yes.
So, when it came to learning the new areas of retail like fitness or tennis or those sorts of things, what did you learn as far as versatility in retail? I'm thinking about, I know a lot of our members in recent years have started buying for pickleball or for paddle or for tennis that they maybe traditionally didn't have under their umbrella. So, certainly a broadening of their scope. So, how did you navigate being versatile in that way and learning those new facets of the industry?
Great question. The most important thing I can say is ask questions. What I will always say, I don't play golf, I don't play tennis, I don't shoot sporting clays. I wouldn't be where I am without asking questions. The best way to learn is to ask those that you don't know from, right? And as I mentioned earlier, I've worked with a lot of great pros, but it's not just golf pros that I was talking about, it's tennis pros, pros in other facilities that have really nurtured me and coached me along the way of learning these different areas. The other thing I like to do is pop into the different facilities and watch our members, see what they're wearing, what they're doing. They're my customer, and that's who I'm buying for. So I like to observe, hopefully quietly and along the wall, but it's great to see what they're doing, what they're wearing. I also have members that will come up to me when I'm in the shops, like merchandising or things like that, to give me feedback. And obviously, we can't always get positive feedback, but the majority of the time, it's something that I can learn and grow from.
Mhm.
On the topic of versatility, there is obviously the versatility of the seven different shops that I have,
Mhm.
but also the versatility in product that needs to be carried in the different shops. One way I like to test product is through trunk shows throughout the year. It allows me
Mhm.
to test smaller brands or something different that I might not be 100% sure about and bring them in to gauge the membership's reaction to the product before bringing it into the shops.
That's a great way to test things out. I've heard several merchandisers taking that approach, and it seems like a good low risk opportunity. You're not making the inventory investment up front. You're probably going to have someone, hopefully, from the brand on site, having that presence, interacting with your members and guests. So I think that's a really, seems like a good key for trying something new is in your trunk shows.
Mm.
During the pandemic, I know you took on the challenge of building a website from scratch. What lessons did you learn from that? Well, thinking about being creative, problem solving in retail, it was obviously an unprecedented time, but what did that experience teach you for retail?
It definitely reaffirmed that I'm not good with technology, but that I am very patient. We all had to pivot during the pandemic. I'm sure I'm not the only buyer that went down the creating your website
Hmm?
route.
Yeah.
The question was, how do we get product that we have in the golf shops to our membership when we can't open our doors? With technology, that was definitely I think the easiest answer for a lot of us was to create a website. But I will say I spend hours learning Shopify. Thankfully, it's a pretty easy platform to use, but there's a lot of metrics that go into it, making sure your price points match, making sure that you've got the sizing, the color, like the product description, things like that, that you just spend a lot of time copying and pasting and just things like that that I wasn't used to. And the other part was taking the pictures. I remember it was Jacinta who was our assistant merchandiser at the time, and her and I spent hours outside or in the merchandise room trying to get the perfect picture with the resources that we have. Lots of contorting and moving this way and that way. And it was definitely a unique experience. one that I'm glad I had. It definitely
Hmm.
tested and challenged me. When our doors opened again, it was one of those things that I had to close because I was just working off of one inventory. The inventory in the shop was the same as the inventory on the website, and it was just too hard to stay on top of if it's sold here, I have to immediately take it off the website, or if it's sold on the website, I've got to immediately take it off the floor. And being having multiple locations, it was just too tough to on top of. But
Hmm.
thankfully now there's lots of third parties that we all
Yeah.
work with to create websites for us. But a couple of other ways that I was also creative during the pandemic was partnering with, excuse me, partnering with other vendors to create microsites. We worked with multiple brands to create microsites to send out to the membership. And that's something I still continue to use to this day, especially around the holidays. We get to offer product with our logo on it, but it's not in our inventory. So it's very low overhead, which is fantastic. But we also partnered with Summit Golf Brands in their club code program. So they gave us a discount code to send out to the membership that was tied to our logos. So our membership would go onto Summit Golf Brands different websites and they could shop from there. And then at the end of the day, they were not end of the day, but end of their shopping experience, they would go and when they checked out, it was in the cart where it says discount code. We put the information in there and then it was automatically tied to our logo. So our logo will get put on there and it would ship directly to the member. So that was
Hmm.
another creative and different way to
Hmm.
make sure we still got our logoed product to the membership.
That's great. I think it was a big lesson in pivoting for everyone of having to just completely take apart how you thought about retail. And like you said, the options are so much more today than they were 5 or 6 years ago as far as what the options were for e-commerce or for microsites look so
Mhm.
different than they did
Yes.
6 or 7 years ago. And I know I was in a pretty similar situation to you. I was at Baltusrol Golf Club at the time, and it was very similar of we have all this spring product arriving. How can we get it to our members? And
Yep.
we were lucky we already had an online store for over a year, so it was a little bit of an easier transition, but it still was a reframing of having to think about we have all this product, how can we get it to our
What do
members?
we
And it,
do? Yeah.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. So I know you've been very committed to mentoring through your assistant merchandiser program, which is
Mhm.
fantastic. What has been most rewarding about guiding new merchandisers, and how do you approach developing what will hopefully be these future leaders in golf retail?
This is definitely the most rewarding part of my job as I get to participate in the growth of an individual. And I always love seeing how they grow when they're with us on Kiawah, but then also once they leave Kiawah as
Mm.
well. And it's not just our assistant merchandiser. I also coach and mentor our golf shop associates, our pros. I'm even working with one of our food and beverage managers right now who's interested in getting into retail. I I definitely think it's important to give everyone the tools that they need in order to succeed in their career because especially in the golf industry, one of the things I love the most about the golf industry is you're not meant to be in one place for
Mm.
your whole entire career. We want you to
Hmm.
continue to succeed and grow and move on to the next thing. To participate that in that is very rewarding for me. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Bridget right now, who's our current assistant merchandiser. She is new to golf retail, but has been crushing it with us since October. Just wanted to give a shout out to Bridget. It's an ever evolving template that I use as each new assistant merchandiser has a different set of skills and experiences that they come to the table with. Typically, I'd say the first like 6 months of them being with us, it's getting to know the shops, specifically the golf shops, because that's where they spend the majority of their time, educating them on the brands that we carry, our markups, our SKU system, how to receive product, our not our my merchandising philosophies and best practices and do's and don'ts in the golf shop. But I just want them to get very comfortable with the day-to-day runnings of things because this is where a lot of their time is spent, and the merchandising, doing the window displays, things like that. There's a lot of time that is spent in those areas. But from there, we move on to buying and product selection. So they come and they sit in the meetings with our vendors with me. We do the pre-books together. We work hand in hand to put together the seasons or the upcoming season's collections, making sure there's a good selection of products from like long sleeve to short sleeve, time of year, prints, solids, all of that. So getting to know from my feedback what the membership gravitates towards and how we include that in our pre-books. But also around that time, I typically give them a section or a category in the golf shop to focus on. So let's say it's hats or head covers or kids clothing or something like that. But we start with the whole buying process. So they'll start from, okay, we have a need here. Let's create a product. Let's design something or work with the rep and figure out like where the logo is going to go and things like that. So it's from there to creating the order, knowing sizes that work best for us. And so creating the order and then moving into receiving it once it arrives. So creating the SKU, receiving the product, and figuring out where in the shop would be best for it. And then watching the sell through. So that way they get the whole arc of the creative process through buying, receiving, sell through, all of that. So I feel like that is always an exciting part because they've got their hand in the golf shop, like picking everything. They get to see the sell through, and it's just exciting to see it from start to finish. The other thing I have started doing is signing our assistant merchandisers up for the AGM certified retail program. This is a great resource that you guys offer, and it pairs wonderfully with what I'm teaching and even hits on things that I might not be teaching. Thank you for
Oh,
creating that great program. But typically, the assistant merchandiser and I are together for about a year and a half, 2 years. And that's definitely something when I interview for the position that I say ahead of time, this is what the time span has
mhm,
been for this position.
right.
And it's around that time that I feel like I've coached and mentored everything that they need to learn. And at that point, they're ready to take on something of their own. And whether it's going into sales or product development or running their own golf shop, it's from there I like to help them with their resume and researching the positions, things like that. So that way we can find the correct path for them. The last thing I'll say on the position is that I see working and coaching with these team members as an education for me also. They help keep me fresh, they help keep me relevant. They bring in new and exciting ideas that I might not have come up with, but most importantly, it's great to have a teammate. I always look forward to watching them grow during our time together and then seeing them blossom as they continue on in their career.
That's awesome. And thank you for mentioning the Certified Retail Manager program. We so appreciate that and so excited, that you've had some assistant merchandisers go through it. I think everything you said is so terrific. And I like that there is, I hate to say expiration date. It is set up that it isn't a forever role, that your goal is that they will grow and they'll go on to their next bigger position. Same way an assistant golf pro
Mhm.
eventually goes on to something bigger and as they develop. So it's awesome. I know Kiawah is certainly a destination for folks. I'm sure you have members and guests coming from around the world to
Mhm.
visit your property there. How do you stay true to the Kiawah identity while still keeping your assortments fresh and relevant and appealing to these folks who are traveling there as a destination?
So, to start with, the first thing I think about in regards to lifestyle on Kiawah is that we have 4 seasons, but through those 4 seasons, I've found that certain color fabric or color palettes, fabrics, and price points catch the attention of our membership no matter the season. Things change seasonally, obviously, but if I stick to the lighter and brighter color palettes and the smaller prints, that's something that resonates with our membership season after season. Knowing your customer is the best way to curate a buy. We have the same membership at all of our facilities, but each facility has its own sort of unique footprint and vibe about it. And it's getting to know the members and what their specific wants in those facilities is, and then catering to it. I've been fortunate enough to be with the club for almost 15 years and have developed relationships with our members. And it's through their feedback that I help curate our buys for the specific feedback.
That's great. Thank you. And I know we're just coming off of the PGA show that just happened in January. So, looking at the golf industry in a more broad perspective, what do you think the next generation of golf and lifestyle retail will look like? And how can merchandisers start preparing for that shift now?
I see golf pivoting back to a more of a classic golf look. So during the pandemic, we went with loud prints and
Mm,
hoodies and a more relaxed look on the golf course. I'm excited to see that it's trending back towards a more classic, well put together look. I always think of the quote, it's a gentleman's game. And I think going back to the crisp, like collared shirts, the sweater vest product that goes from the golf course and easily transitions into the clubhouse or on with the rest of your day sort of defines that definition. And that's what I'm excited to see moving forward. I'm thinking brands like A Putnam or
mm.
Williams Athletic Club and Holderness and Bourne are some of the ones that I see leading the way in this trend. And I'm looking forward to athleisure taking a little bit more of a back seat and going forward with the more classic golf look.
That's a great point that you brought up the kind of more relaxed hoodies and the bright patterns and all of that kind of correlated with the pandemic, that things were a little looser and all that. So that's a great correlation. More folks working from home and then just going to play golf. And I think that's a great connection to make. And I would agree that we're probably going to see a swing back towards the traditional, the classic,
Mhm.
and that's probably what we'll be seeing the next couple of years here.
I am looking forward to it.
Me too. And finally, what's next for retail at Kiawah? Are there any upcoming projects or initiatives that you're really excited for this year?
Yeah, the big project that I'm working on right now is prepping for our second annual's Masters Trunk Show. We have a lot of members on property with guests during the Masters week. We're only
Mm.
about 2 hours from Augusta. So
Oh,
a lot of the members pop down and go for a day and then pop back up. But so I last year I thought, okay, I need to utilize the overabundance of people on the island right now. What can I do? So I hosted a trunk show and I had about 12 different vendors, hard and soft good products that were showing not just spring, but fall. So members could pre book as well. So it was a great way to kick off the season and gear up for the year for our membership. We had men's and women's clothing, shoes, belts, golf bags, travel gear, anything you could want for the upcoming year. The other thing we did last year is we hosted a par three tournament on the Wednesday, the same day that Augusta does it. And it had the pimento cheese sandwiches, the egg sandwiches, anything you can typically get at Augusta, you got it on the course that day. But this year we've decided to pair those two events together. They'll happen on the same day. And I'm in the planning stages of that right now with our golf and our event team to hopefully have another successful year in doing that. But the other big and exciting thing that's happening on Kiawah is this spring we will break ground on our third golf course. So we have low country native Bo Welling coming in to design the course. So that will also, on that piece of property, there will also be another learning facility and a par three course as well. And then obviously in a couple of years they will build the clubhouse, and I'm excited about that for having a hand in building a golf shop from scratch. I've never been a part of something like that, and I feel like after being in the industry for almost 15 years. I've got ideas of what that would work and wouldn't work, and look forward to working with the team building the clubhouse to put something together that will wow the membership.
Wow, that's really exciting. Sounds like lots of exciting things to come. And I love how you lean into having when you have more folks on property during the Masters and kind of capitalize on that. I think that's a great thing for our members to think about. Are there times of the year where you just naturally have more people on property, whether it's because of something happening within your gates or something local that just draws people in and capitalizing on that? That's awesome.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
That about wraps up my questions. Thank you so much, Devon, for being here. It was great to learn a little bit more about your career, about how you manage your 7 shops there at Kiawah, and all the amazing things you're doing. So, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was such a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the Fairway to Retail Success. We look forward to having you join us again soon for some upcoming episodes. Take care, everyone.